More now on the breaking news tonight. Sources telling CNN the suspect in the shooting in Washington, D.C. that left 2 National Guard members in critical condition at this hour. That man has been identified as Rahmanullah Lakanwal. We are told that he immigrated to the United States from Afghanistan in 2021, that he had applied for asylum in 2024, and the Trump administration granted that asylum in April of this year. Sources telling CNN he is still not cooperating with investigators at this hour. Looking at where things stand, there are going to be a lot of questions, as we were just discussing at the top of the hour, about what was known about him when he came in, what was learned during the asylum process. That's all going to be to come. When we look at where things stand in terms of these 2 National Guard members who are now in critical condition, there are questions about legally what will continue in the district, in the city of Washington, D.C., with the president saying he wants 500 additional troops, but also file an emergency. Sorry, this is a long question. But for background, right? So we know that last week the judge said, hey, this deployment initially, I think this was illegal. I'm going to give you 3 weeks to figure it out, right? And to appeal, if you would like, to the administration. But we need everybody out, all these National Guard troops out by December 11th, I believe it was. So the administration filing this emergency today, saying we want to keep them in, and the president saying I want 500 more troops. How much does that sort of muddy the waters legally, given everything that we saw today?
Well, I think the president is going to, and his administration is going to use this incident to further their cause of having these guardsmen on the street. The issue that we have is if you add 500 people to this equation, or 500 soldiers, it wouldn't have stopped what happened today. He walked up on soldiers and opened fire. It would have just been more targets there. These people are there. Their assignment is high visibility patrol. So people know where they are. They're uniformed, so people know what they look like. And if they want to approach them or harm them, they're in harm's way. So why add to that and put more people in harm's way when it wouldn't have changed the outcome in this particular matter?
So it could put potentially more troops in harm's way. Does it make the city any safer in your view?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe potentially in those immediate areas, but I think the bigger question is this. Anytime the commander-in-chief sends men and women into harm's way, he has to explain why it's absolutely necessary. And the question should be, is this absolutely necessary? Is there no other tool we can use to solve this problem? And I think that's where there's a debate in this country. And the unfortunate problem is that our troops are caught in the middle of that debate. This is a really bad place for our troops to be, where half the country or less supports this and half the country or more does. And our troops are caught in the middle of that. So they've always been at risk, not just from terrorists, but from protesters, from accidents, from any number of things. And the president's now got to look some families in the eye and say, this is why your son or daughter was critically wounded and potentially killed. And that's a justification he has to make to the American people, especially since the court is now ruling it's potentially illegal, not just there, but in other cities as well.
And to your point, Kristen, does this then turn it, right? So it is not the soldiers themselves who are political, right? But does this make even just their presence even more political?
I'm afraid so. It's really frustrating where troops are always caught in the middle. And when political rhetoric is high, it's always the troops that you see visible with the American flag on their shoulder. Even politicians, can go on the subway and by and large not be noticed. But if you're wearing the uniform of the United States of America, you are clearly visible and you're unfortunately a target. And this was a high visibility patrol and something that we would do when deployed in Afghanistan or other countries, this type of thing. But but so many of the troops in Washington D.C. have been basically picking up trash, and it seems very challenging to justify that in terms of injuries. An assault like this, are they going to be covered by the VA for injuries that they assume in trash pickup or in a tragic, horrific incident like
one
this?
thing that has to happen, though, is we have to make sure that this assailant is prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law to deter anyone from taking any action against any of our soldiers in D.C. or otherwise. He has to be prosecuted. It's on video, so it will make this easier, but some background will be done to see. Motive generally isn't involved in cases, but if it was politically motivated or something like that, that can enhance whatever his sentence is. And we also want to look and see how premeditated it was and if there's some evidence to suggest that.
And what's the threat level now there and across the country?
Absolutely.
Which is a valid question, right? We're seeing those questions, especially ahead of the holiday here in New York City, people wondering about the parade as well as a number of other cities. When we look at, in terms of motive, that will come. Hopefully, perhaps we will get some more information on that. But in terms of potential charges, where we stand right now, based on what we've learned over the last few hours, does that change at all what you're hearing in terms of potential charges, either one of you?
Well, you're going to start off with the assault and then the attempted murder that just comes with the territory when you walk up and attempt to shoot people in the head. But because they're in that uniform, because they are serving at that spot, then it's also attempted murder of a federal official in the process of carrying out their duty. Those charges can come right away based on the prima facie evidence that is here now. The Joint Terrorism Task Force with the DC Metro Police working on that attempted murder case, and God forbid one of these soldiers passes away when those charges would go up a notch, we'll be looking at the terrorist angle here, which we don't know about, but you can't not look for it. It's why the case has been assigned to the JTTF. They're going to want to know, where was this person's mindset? What were the stressors in their life? What was their intake from online propaganda, if any, communicating with whom? You know, we have seen in recent weeks, as recent as November 7th, ISIS renewing calls to have domestic lone wolf attacks in the United States and Europe. They're going to have to page through all of that and figure out what was going on with this individual.
And in terms of that, what does it change in terms, I mean, we're talking about the alerts just in cities, but the alert for law enforcement tonight, as they are looking at their people, right, and how safe or not they feel that they are.
Well, it goes back to law enforcement, is working hand in hand with National Guard troops across the country. Does the responsibility now shift from a law enforcement, a policing practice, to now protecting them against what is now an unknown threat against them? And I think when you think about the number, like adding 500 more troops to Washington, D.C., I think today's incident actually pushed us beyond the point of marginal utility. Adding more soldiers on the ground in D.C. becomes more detractive than it is additive, because now they just increase a target-rich environment for somebody who has animus against that. We're saying, and we're hearing officials say right away, that this was a targeted attack. Again, now you can make a little bit of an analytical leap to say this is a targeted attack against somebody in uniform. So why would we put more targets in an area which could potentially impact public safety at large? I'd rather see more officers. I'd rather see more uniform presence. The deterrence factor from this incident today, the whole point of having these soldiers on the ground to act as a deterrence in this high visibility action is now gone, because they became the target themselves.
And there's no evidence that adding 500 will add to it. It just may put more people in
I think
harm.
it's
So that
absolutely
when you balance
detractive.
those scales, there's nothing
And to
really
Paul's
on the
point,
other
it will
side.
be interesting to see what, if any, information is given as the justification for why these additional troops are needed and what ultimately the administration believes that would change. Appreciate all of you. Thank you. We're going to continue to follow any developing moments, any developing news rather, on this breaking story throughout the evening. Also taking a look at this for you this hour: dismissed, a Georgia prosecutor dropping the racketeering case against the president for allegedly trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election. Tonight, Trump still saying he won that race.